Are you tired of a podcast that only entertains you without leaving you with something to think about? Are you looking for a podcast that truly enrich your life? Then Let's Talk is the show for you. Our motto is to make people think after every episode, and we take that mission seriously. Each episode is carefully crafted to provide an insight and ideas to help you live a more fulfilling life. From practical tips for improving your mental and physical health to thought provoking ideas and discussions on personal growth and development, Let's Talk has something for everyone. Our guests come from a variety of backgrounds and bring wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. We believe that everyone has something to teach, and we are committed to bringing you the best insights, ideas from the wide range of perspective. So if you're ready to start thinking more deeply about your life, how you can make it better, then Let's Talk is the podcast for you. Subscribe today and start enriching your life one thought-provoking episode at a time. Welcome to Let's Talk podcast. Hello all, listeners near and far. Thank you for tuning in to yet another thought-provoking episode of Let's Talk podcast. Today, we are exceptionally privileged to welcome back our previous guest, an individual whose insights and wisdom has resonated us with not one, but two more occasions. Our guest is none other than Carson V. Heady. Carson is an embodiment of success in sales leadership and a distinguished figure in creating and delivery trainings that stretches across multiple countries. And these are not mere words. He has proven his mettle by delivering a tremendous value in companies like Microsoft and also having a lot of other entrepreneurial ventures around the training for sales. Remember episode 35? When the professional world was abuzz with the talks of layoffs, Carson graced our platform and shared his deep insights. He skillfully painted the picture of the situation and, more importantly, guided us through the coping strategies and the best steps forward. His calm and strategic approach, what was a tumultuous period of many, won the appreciation of the audience and creating a lasting impact. I still got some feedback around that. And who forget the episode 23, the importance of personal branding, was one of the talk of the town. And who better decode than Carson, who has thousands of followers across different social platforms. He provided us some blueprints to create a robust personal brand, inspired our listeners to redefine their professional identities. And today, as we welcome Carson back for the third time, we are also anticipating some gems of wisdom around, specifically around technology sales. Welcome back to the podcast, Carson, and it's an absolute pleasure to host you once again.
So, Rob, thank you. Hopefully, I can live up to all that. It's great to be back. Always good to see you, my friend.
Likewise. So today, based on some feedback and my observation, we are talking specifically around technology sales. And you started off your journey. Obviously, you have a long journey with your books, like a Birth of a Salesman, Salesman on Fire, and then you moved to Microsoft without having any technical background and leading the group of technical sales people out there. So I would like to know, maybe I'll directly get into the topic here. What is so different from a regular sales, maybe a retail marketing or any other field, with the technology sales at this point of our generation?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a completely different language. And to be
Mhm.
fair, I had a lot of leadership experience before coming to Microsoft, but yet I'm very grateful that I spent several years as an individual contributor before
Mhm.
making a move into leadership because I needed that. I needed that experience. It's helped me from a credibility perspective with my team because my team knows what I'm talking about. And I realized early on I was never going to be, nor Did I want to be the smartest person in the room? I needed to figure out who are the smart people. How can I tap into that message, learn from it, and get more people into the room with those smart folks. And that is what I've based my time at Microsoft on. Technology sales is different in a lot of ways, but I remember what a mentor told me years ago. He said, Carson, when it comes to sales roles, follow the zeros. Go to where the checks that are being written have the most zeros behind them, because it says a couple of things. One, I mean, as a seller, you're going to typically get paid more in technology sales or where there's more zeros. But furthermore, it's all the more impactful to the business. We are at the forefront of a lot of the technical advancements and transformations that our customers are doing, and it's been a fascinating journey over the last 9.5 years here to be able to watch that evolution.
That's great. Yeah. So you rightly mentioned that even though you may not have technical information, at least the core of some of the human skills, like leadership skills and maybe empathy and understanding what kind of things are required in certain kind of roles. It's so important. So going into some of the scenario based, because some of my friends and colleagues also mentioned about talking some scenarios, right, in those sales, and I would be curious, what's your take on that? So first one would be like you you are in front of your prospect or a client, and you are trying to pitch some of the one of the new products and novel idea, right, which which is not has proven in the market. However, you think that it's pretty beneficial to the customer uh, without any lack of experience. What's your take? How would you pitch or try to persuade the client that why this novel product is really beneficial for them?
Yeah, this is super important. And, just as in any other type of sales and technology sales, it really comes down to some of these fundamentals. And, if I'm pitching this, hopefully I've done some work going into that creation and investment of relationship, really seeking to earn the right to be the trusted advisor. Because if I have credibility in that room, the likelihood and viability that that business leader, that executive is going to go down a path with me becomes a lot more likely. We see this all the time in our game, right? We see new products come into the forefront, things that sometimes they're not ready for prime time right out of the gate, and so we're kind of asking for that leap of faith. We're asking for customers to come in. I heard a great analogy a few years ago from someone that is a mentor of mine that I trust a great deal in our organization. And he told me, like, sometimes we're asking people almost like we're building a country club, right? And we envision it's going to be this great country club based on X, Y, and Z, and what some of the inputs that we're doing, some of the investments that we're making, some of the people that are involved, but we don't know exactly what the final product is going to be. However, we want these customers, these executives in the boat with us because we know that with their insight, we can make this something truly great. And so I think that's the other element that we often offer these customers and these executives is that, hey, we're getting in at the ground floor of this. We need and want your active engagement. Maybe there's a pilot, maybe there's a preview period, there's opportunity for them to get in and have access to some of this new tech early on and see how it could benefit their organization. And frankly, there's a benefit to them as well. Because guess what? If they figure out how they can adopt it and how they can leverage this tech to improve efficiencies, improve employee experience, and they can do that ahead of a lot of their competitors, that has a lot of impact on their culture and how they play in the market. So it's important to establish that trust and credibility with those customers first so that they want to go on the journey with you. But at the same time, you also want to make sure you paint the right picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to summarize, basically, you have to establish some relationship. Obviously, you cannot just knock at the door and just say that I'm here to sell something new, which has never been proven so far, but we are sincerely believe in that. I mean, no one would realize that, and no one will believe that. And I think that's why it's very important to have those trusted relationships, so that once you have that equity built in, now forward, if you say something, they will believe. So what about the exit strategy? Like they are all okay, Carson. I totally understand what you're pitching, and I understand that you believe in. However, we still have some reservations about this. So, what kind of exit strategy, if you would try to provide them to at least make them a win-win situation as well?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can approach that. And
Mhm,
again, you want to come from that position of where there is that trusted relationship because,
mhm,
perhaps there is an ask that you can make.
mhm,
Perhaps there is an ask that you can make of them to maybe go on the journey, but not commit fully. Because I think here's the key thing, Sarab, that you kind of alluded to is that there's often going to be these scenarios by which we can't sell this or position this like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread when it doesn't have a proven strategy yet. However, a lot of times with these scenarios, what we want to do is we want to turn this snowball into an avalanche. We want to get some wins and some momentum so that we can parlay that into other wins for customers. But in those early days, when you don't necessarily have that, it's more challenging to do it. And so I think what I've seen a lot of times in these types of scenarios, when we want to win that business, when we want to earn that business, we got to get creative. A lot of times in these situations, I'll go to my team, to my leadership, we'll brainstorm. I'm very fortunate to work as a part of a very collaborative and innovative culture. And so I get the opportunity to really work with some of these folks and say, hey, look, this is the possibility. This is what we think we can unlock. And when you have a great relationship with a customer, a lot of times they're going to arm you with what you need. And frankly, I always take that approach with my customers as well. It's important to have that foundation of trust and transparency with your customer so that you understand each other's milestones, each other's priorities, each other's key timelines. Because when you do that and when you have that level of relationship, you can accomplish anything. I have so many deals in my career where I knew the budgetary number that they needed to hit, and they knew the strategic levers that I needed. So we helped each other to a path that was mutually beneficial. It's great for the customer, it's great for my company, it's great for my team and me personally. And so those are the perfect scenarios. Now in these, there's elements that you can't control. When there's these intangible elements, these things that you're not exactly sure how these things will pan out. So that's why it's really important to get creative with leadership. And I have often found that there are ways to bring more resources to bear. Maybe there's a deeper discount that you want to offer to get them to entice them to move early on. We're definitely working in a scenario right now where there's not a lot of dollars that customers are able to allocate for specific projects. But guess what? Money's being spent somewhere. So if you're able to make the case credibly, there could still be an investment. You just got to figure out what that magic number might be. The other thing too, how could you invest in other ways? Do you have any other folks, any other customers that could tell a story early on as far as what has enticed them about this? Can you build community around this and have other customers, maybe not that compete, that are talking to each other as you're all mutually exploring what's possible around this solution? Obviously, you as a seller are presenting the solution because someone believes strongly that it has merit. But I think the more exposure to your customer has to it, whether it's even with engineering and the product team, and they have input and insight into the product, the more you give them visibility to what's behind the curtain, it de-risks the decision for the customer. And that's what you want to focus on. When all else fails, it might be a wait and see approach. You mentioned exit strategy. You're not going to win every deal. The key is you got to evangelize it the best you can. You've got to offer and inform. And you also want to continue to keep them apprised of updates. That's the beauty of this. As products evolve and exist longer in the ecosystem, I mean, certainly you and I both know that there's a lot of products that even within 6 months being generally available, they go from maybe not quite ready for prime time to very robust. And so make sure you're continuing to keep your customer apprised of the advancements that the solution is making.
That's great. I think what you mentioned, you touched upon key things, obviously, to spend some time, because the more research you do about the customer and the more you know about their environment, you, instead of pitching it them for a longer period of time, I think you can directly hit the nerve, why exactly we are saying something. And this is something most of the time I'm learning that in certain circumstances, a lot of sales guys keep on pitching in a way that they go on a long monologue, and they don't understand that it's not about the amount of words or those beautiful phrases you have to use from the sales. It may be how in less and less words you have to make a compelling statement, and that is only possible when you spend a lot of time understanding their environment, executives pain areas, because what executive thinks they have their own challenges. And the more you spend time on that, and when you say that this product will resolve, and even if it doesn't, to the extent, let's try it out and I back you up. So that is one thing which you mentioned. The other thing is, I think in sales, teamwork. You don't know everything, and you don't even know that what other folks in your team has some kind of findings in that perspective. And as you mentioned, let's have a teamwork, understand how we can get discounts, what kind of licensing, or so on and so forth, to understand that where are they coming from, what's their suggestion. Because the more we include more people, they will also back you up in case the tide is not in our favor, right? When the thing goes wrong, then there's always a possibility. I was reading a case study of Southwest, which is one of the remarkable one, is at how they only bank on the employee satisfaction, because once employees are happy, everything follows through. And they mention about those things, that teamwork is so important, and shared responsibility and shared goal is that important. So I think you touched a great about that part. So here's the follow-up question on that. So you mentioned that, okay, you are selling this, trying to the novel idea, customer is happy with that, but then you also know that they already invested on some technologies which they believe in. And in that perspective, uh, if you have maybe some other product, I'm not saying only about the new product here, you are trying to talk to the customer, we have decided all the fundamentals, but then now gets into some of the maybe some right questions to ask, because this is important. About they already believe in a product, you are trying to pitch in, or you are trying to provide some other product which may be uh, which may be even expensive. So, how exactly you try to kind of win their trust, fully considering that this would, I mean, this is not a comfortable situation for them to increase, because money, as you mentioned, you have to follow the dollars. And now we are giving some product which is relatively expensive than what they are using at this point.
The short answer to that is fundamental to sales, and it's make them a hero and de-risk the decision. But the longer answer is this. Obviously, there was a lot of time and intent that was spent in making the decision that they made. The buyer journey is different than it once was. They are armed with so much information at their fingertips. Careers are made and broken off of some of the decisions that are made. So, you as a seller, you have to look at it from their seat, from their side of the desk. You've got to understand the decisions that went into this, that would go into a change. You have to help them work out a total cost of ownership. You have to help them understand what some of the key milestones are going to be. When are they going to realize value off this solution if it's not right away? This has to very much be a collaboration. You know, the word partnership is used so often these days that I fear sometimes it is deflated from a meaningful standpoint. But that's exactly what you need here is you need to have a partnership in order to really bolster what this new solution can do. And we run into this all the time in tech. You know, solution might be more expensive. There might be a specific product or set of products that's very sticky right now. I recommend, and this is something that another one of I have a lot of mentors in sales. I think that's super important. And I have one that really stands out that talks about how you do a SWOT analysis of your competitor and your solution. You're not going to win where the competitor is strong. just not going to happen. That was likely the very basis by which the decision was made. You're going to win where they have opportunities and threats. You're going to win where you're strong. So really look at all of the things. And look, I mean, there's probably some marketing intel and things like that. There's probably intel that you can get from customers. I've talked about this on this show and others that I've done. I do a lot of what's called social selling,
Yeah.
digital prospecting. I work as hard as I can to create and nurture relationships with as many influencers and their influencers as possible. And the benefit of doing that, the biggest deal I ever did, I had over 200 LinkedIn connections in that organization. I had met with about three quarters of them face to face. And the power of that, Sarab, was that I was getting all this intel that was making me valuable to their organization. I was able to really be at the pulse of their organization when I was talking to their senior leaders. They needed me. They went through 7 different C-level changes in the multiple years that I supported them and the multiple years of the sales cycle. And the deal looked nothing at the end like what it originally embarked on being. But at the heart of that was that I knew all of the intel that was super important and where they had needs and where their current solutions had weaknesses. And so over time, you can erode that. It's not an overnight process. And a lot of the things that we've already talked about are also very important. You've got to establish the relationship. You have to have credibility and trust with the client, potentially by leveraging your expertise or the expertise of those around you. See, for me, it's never been about my expertise. It's really, I may know all the resources to bring to bear. So that's the greatest value that I bring my client. And I'm an orchestrator. I bring in all of those people. I know the processes. I know how to evangelize my customer to my organization and to my senior leadership so I can get them what they need. And that is the key. Those are the things. That's how you set up fertile ground to win in those uncertain or cost prohibitive situations.
Yeah. And I think that's what, and you started with the right phrase about make them a hero and de-risk their strategy. That is one of the key thing, irrespective of the cost of those solutions. That is so profound because, again, uh, you also mentioned about the competitors, which makes me think. I'm reading one book called Blue Ocean, I think Blue Ocean Theory, which is an amazing book, which basically makes that you try to create your own niche in a pretty well established business and market, and make your competitors irrelevant. And that's where it comes, like how you can create your personality and your flavor, learn the fundamentals of sales, and then try to persuade people by having a good way of research, and as you mentioned, understanding their problems and the intel out there. So quickly get into the next question, which is again one of the things which is having a lot of conversations is around the having the AI as a part of the corporate world or any kind of industry here. Whenever even I go from the Microsoft perspective, I've been asked what happens, does AI I mean, is that there's a danger of losing my job because of AI? And there are a lot of AI related products across the market through different vendors. So if you are in that situation, for example, if people raise those concerns, what would be your perspective or response to make sure that they understand about the AI and maybe a productive take on that?
Yeah, I think the key thing first is, something you alluded to earlier, Sarab, and it's, you've got to acknowledge and empathize with the client's concerns. Obviously the last thing that we want to do is to harm their organization in any way. I get paid to support that organization. That is
Mm.
what my job is, and that is my purview. So first and foremost, that's my top priority. I don't want to bring a solution or a scenario that doesn't support them well. But I think what you want to start to look at is where is and it's very similar to what we were just
Mm.
talking about. Doing these SWOT analyses is super impactful because if you can start to look at where an organization is, has opportunities and threats around productivity, around employee experience, where are their salespeople spending the preponderance of their time? what are some of these key tasks that we could automate to give them more time to do more impactful work? I mean, look, as a seller, my key focus area is being as productive and focused as humanly possible. I would challenge anybody here. It's so often as salespeople, we need to get to the other side of the desk. We need to be able to think from that perspective. Think about the challenges that your target customer, your prospect, your dream client, think about all the challenges that they're having and ask them about those challenges. Where do you see your teams spending a lot of your time? What are some key things that come up in employee surveys? And look for that as your low hanging fruit, because we don't want to replace jobs. We want to create jobs as a result of this. Somebody's got to feed the AI engines. You can't take everything that's being fed to you carte blanche and just use that to replace a person. No, we have to prompt it accurately. We have to teach the engine. But this also begets the opportunity for new jobs and new opportunities within jobs. And that's what I find super exciting, because I think about as a seller, if I'm able to automate some of these processes, if I'm able to get notes for a meeting that I wasn't even able to attend because I was double or triple booked, but I'm able to get notes and recordings like I was there. And I can fashion an agenda for a follow up meeting or a follow up email like that. Or I can create a presentation deck in mere minutes that previously would have taken me hours. Think about how much time is freed up for me as a seller, for me as an executive, whomever you're meeting with. So I think it really gives you that opportunity to unearth what is holding back their organization today. What are their employees raising up as some of these key issues in the organization? How can we leverage this new technology in a way to empower and enable them to focus, do better work, do more work that they're passionate about? I think the future is beautiful.
The future is beautiful. That's great. And you rightly mentioned about the whole process. I mean, what we have discussed so far, everything tie into some of the fundamentals, irrespective of the technology. And obviously, we have to understand why they're thinking what they're thinking and what exactly the reasoning behind it. Because the more we dig in and understand their situations, we can get some more compelling answers. And AI is not working by itself. There is whole ecosystem around it, so we have to provide them some creative ways, as you mentioned, that work on a more impactful. Because again, from the AI perspective, it can do some of the redundant tasks, some repetitive tasks. After all, we need some human wisdom and intervention in certain tasks, and that's where they can try to work towards it. So as we go towards the end, so quick things here. Maybe if you can refer a book or books apart from your amazing books like The Birth of a Salesman, Salesman on Fire, any other book which from a technologist people would like to look into from the selling perspective. And then the second question is any last word for the people who are who are still struggling in selling technologies.
I love that. Frankly, a lot of the books that I read are, very focused on it. I'm actually looking up one that I want to
Yeah.
recommend. Um,
Hmm.
but a lot of the books that I read are just sales fundamentals and things of that nature. I read the Mike Weinberg's stuff. So, New Sales Simplified, Sales Management Simplified, and that
Hmm.
has always been really impactful for me. Books that really impacted me as well personally, Winning and Relentless by Tim Grover, who trained Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And the big one that was tech focused
Hmm.
was the Sales Acceleration Formula. And that one I read this earlier on in the year, and that was really impactful and just kind of setting up my year. Um, and that was by Mark Roberge. So phenomenal books. Last thing I was wanted to leave you with, and Sarab, I know we talked a little bit before hopping on here, and talking about like we all lose deals, right? Sometimes there's circumstances around the lost deal, right? We all have these. We lose big tech deals, and it's it's very challenging because we spend a lot of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears we put into these only to have them lost. Um, but it's only a loss if you don't learn from it. And I can tell you at this stage in my career, I've been doing sales and sales leadership for 20 plus years. I feel like at this level, at this stage in my career, I can see around corners so well in a sales deal because of every gotcha or aha moment that I've ever had working on a deal. And what I mean by that is if you set the stage and set the table early on for the milestones you have to hit, the amount of time that you need to leave in order to get a deal processed, understanding and uncovering all of the customers' buying processes. Do they have a legal review? Is there a threshold by which it goes to the board? The big thing that I learned on a tech deal that I lost was the level of control. When you don't have control of the deal, and when you're not managing it every day, going down the list, asking yourself, what can I do to influence this deal today, move it down the field a little bit. If you're not obsessively focused on that, those are the types of scenarios by which you've got to control what you can, because that gives you the highest probability of winning in any given situation. And if you don't do that, those are the types of things that can keep you from winning. We're going to lose deals all the time. That's going to happen. But you give yourself your best chance of success when you learn from past losses, when you look ahead and you avoid some of these gotchas or these aha moments. Those are the types of things we can learn from. So I'll leave you with that.
That's great, and I love that phrase you mentioned, that losing is only if you don't learn from it. So, Carson, thank you again so much for providing your time. I'm sure that I'll reach out to you back again with some other topics, because you always have fabulous things to talk about, and
Anytime.
looking forward to it. And have a great day and rest of the time ahead.
You as well. So, Rob, always a pleasure, my friend.
We hope you enjoyed our show today. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media or leave a comment. Don't forget, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And if you find value in our conversation today, we would be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating, reviews, or comments. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we will be back with another episode next week. Till then, keep the conversation going. Let's talk.